In this video, we're going to look at the media landscape in America. As individuals, we are subject to a lot of different agents of socialization. These might be people or they might be institutions, such as our family, our peers, and our school. Those institutions and people shape our values, they help us process information, they help us make sense of the world, which will influence our future behaviors. In this topic, we're going to look at the media as an agent of socialization, because the media presents information to us about the political world. We internalize that, we filter it, and turn that into political behaviors. We all consume media in very different ways. The media landscape in North America is pretty diverse. There is TV, news, websites, social media, there's radio, there's even print newspaper. And people will consume those in different amounts. And we can see just this demographic breakdown. There is a very big skew by age. We've got older folks that are reliant on things like TV and newspaper to shape their view of the world. Younger folks tend to be more reliant on news websites and social media. And so those differential consumption patterns will influence the way people make sense of the world and how they participate in politics. A general trend in what's called either traditional media or sometimes legacy media, these are large media companies that control print publications, TV stations, movie studios. There has been a trend towards consolidation, where there might have been dozens of companies a few years ago. In the present day, there are 5 or 6 dominant firms. And that's been sort of a convergence or consolidation, where a few firms have been combining, they've been purchased by larger firms, to the point where there are only a few dominant firms that control many media channels. Now, what's wrong with this? Well, as media outlets consolidate, and as a result they close local television stations and local newspapers, that influences the way news coverage is produced. Instead of more local focused, there is a more national focus on issues, and that tends to have a polarizing impact on voting behavior. We can see this especially with the decline of local newspapers. Lots of local newspapers each year are shut as they either get purchased by a large hedge fund or a larger news organization, a more national one in scope. Local news tends to be less political than national news, and so as that news coverage declines, it is supplanted or replaced by national outlets and national issues. They tend to be much more polarized than local coverage. This also impacts the news cycle. In a world dominated by TV, news, and legacy print publications, the news cycle was very finite. There were 1 or 2 important newscasts a day, typically 6 p.m., and then an evening news after that. And there was a version of a print newspaper each day. So from a political standpoint, as a politician, you worked for those deadlines. If you were going to do something newsworthy, you wanted to make sure it could get on the evening news, or it was done to get in the next day's print publication. We move into the 80s and 90s. The news cycle became much more continuous, with the dominance of things like talk radio and 24-hour cable news. Again, as a politician, you were less concerned about meeting those milestones in terms of the evening news and the print publication deadline. There were a lot more opportunities to make news. Today, the news cycle is pretty much instantaneous. With social media, things like Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, news can be transmitted almost instantly. And there are many opportunities for politicians to do that, to respond to breaking news and to try and shape their own coverage. This instantaneous news cycle obviously influences the behaviors of politicians and voters. It changes the way they try and create news, and they will respond almost instantly to current events and developments. And voters, similarly, will respond almost instantaneously. So just to recap the media landscape in America, the media serves an important socializing function. It helps shape how we make sense of the world and how we act and make our voting decisions and our decisions how to participate in politics. Convergence has generally produced a few dominant firms, which has resulted in a nationalization of coverage at the expense of local news. Local news tends to be more apolitical, and the resulting nationalization of news means more polarizing national coverage. The new media landscape, with an emphasis on instant content production and social media, really changes how politicians produce news and how voters consume news.